and welcome back to Valoranting. I do want to cuss. I personally think that is fucking bullshit. What can I do for you? What can I do for you, dudes? This is the best produced podcast I've ever been in. Welcome back to Valoranting. I'm WTF Moses, and today we have an ultra special show. We brought some ultra special boys in to join along with us. It's Golden Boy and Doa. You can't get much more special than Golden Boy, believe me there. And Alex, we were talking about Xbox pre-orders. I wanted to get a quick poll. I want the Cliff's Notes version of the thing you gave, or the story you told me just before the broadcast went live.
Basically, woke up, right? Brushed my teeth. Felt like P. Diddy. Should have fit that one in there beforehand because, you know, Kesha. Moving forward, though, then, no, I don't know. I wonder if our, young audience gets that reference. So then after that,
I barely
went online, tried to get Xbox, realized didn't have a credit card, sadness, missed pre-order, mod spams in chat, Amazon was available, Bezos for the rescue, happiness, story.
There you go. I love it.
Wow.
I love it. Doa, how you feeling? I don't think you went out for the pre-order battle royale, but I think you just came off the back of Flashpoint, or one of the best produced. You know what? I'm going to go out there and say it. I'd probably cost myself some work in the future, but wow, what a show you put on.
Hey, well, it wasn't just me. Like it was a lot of people. Obviously, like everyone did an awesome job there. I was joking. It was a show where the Overwatch host casts and the Overwatch casters host. And it was a ton of fun. It was my first and only Valorant event so far, and I've been playing the game and watching some stuff, but it was fun to actually get to be part of an event. And Monty did a ton of work behind the scenes and making sure that like everything ran really smoothly. Came up with a lot of funny ideas and all that. So he was definitely a big part of that too. But yeah, it was a ton of fun. So hopefully I'll do another one at some point. But just kind of chilling out with TFT and other games at this point.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing with Flashpoint was that it was labeled as the last North American Ignition Series event,
Pop
and that
Flash,
was very.
I have to
excuse me. Pop Flash by Flashpoint.
By Flashpoint.
Okay,
not confusing at all. Yeah,
exactly. So we were all. I personally was concerned because I wasn't aware that we were allowed to be in the same room with each other anymore. So I was very jealous to see everyone hanging out in person, and also because it was labeled as the last Ignition Series event, and I was like, well, what are we going to do for Valorant Esports next? How long am I going to have to wait? Well, the wait is over. We've received word from on high. The video came out this morning that First Strike, the next series in Valorant, is about to take place. A lot of information, well, not a lot of information, but the first bit of information came out today, and we are absolutely blessed to have Riot Games' Kasra Jafroodi. He's coming over to talk with us again. We've talked to him in the past, and he's going to be answering our questions about First Strike in just a little while. But first, we have some things to talk about. So stick around for that. It's going to be really excited to talk about First Strike. But we also have some regular stuff we like to talk about, like the developer communications that we've seen over the last week, specifically with patch 1.08. Golden Boy, this was a smaller patch, but some more adjustments to Raze and the Guardian. So what kind of stood out to you in this patch?
I mean, honestly, it just seemed like right now we're kind of in a lull. It seems like the entirety of the video game industry is in a lull right now, which is pretty interesting, but it's for, good reason. And I think that First Strike is indication that we're going to see some pretty sweeping changes going into the next act of Valorant. But yeah, as far as these blast pack changes are concerned, I think that it's just more or less just trying to bring that damage down, as they had mentioned. They want it to be effective. I think that they just want to keep the movement there. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they nerf that thing so much that it just serves as a movement tool, which kind of would suck, but whatever. And then Guardian getting the price reduced to 2,400. They also made some changes to, I believe it was like rate of fire and some other changes with that weapon. I think the Guardian's a great gun. It has always been a great gun, but when you look at the kind of the entire cast of weapons that exists in Valorant, the Guardian's very easy to forget. And they want to sell some skins for that gun. So they're going to try and make it a little bit more balanced. I could see it maybe being in a position down the line where they try to bring it just a little closer to the bulldog, so that you're like, well, if I'm a god tier aimer like a Scream, for example, I'll just get the Guardian before I get the bulldog, which is something that he already kind of does. But I think it's just they want to try and bring that one more in line and get it more involved in a lot of these games.
So, Dole, I'll kind of direct this broader question to you when it comes to
Sure.
Riot's handling of balance and being around the Riot ecosystem for as long as you have. I'm interested to know, at least in your early perception of how Riot has handled balance changes, are they being too drastic or not drastic enough when as far as the changes they put in and when?
I'm always in favor of the less drastic changes when it comes to balance. Like, I mean, because I'm like a StarCraft, OG at this point, where like that was a game that didn't have balance patches for like years, right? So I think it's good to, unless something is very clearly problematic and broken, leave it alone for as long as you possibly can, because gamers are good, right? Gamers will adapt. They will figure out ways to counter stuff. And so I definitely prefer the lighter touch. So this is definitely the kind of patch I like, where it's like very few changes, little bit of tweaks here and there, just to kind of like push little dials in like small amounts of degrees and then see how people react. I don't like it when you have big changes where it's like, if you have a character and you change something about every single ability at the same time, then how do you know what change is really being effective, right? So I'd
Yeah.
say less is more. I like that this patch is small, and I like it when all patches are small. So I'm happy with it.
Golden Boy.
Also, one thing I did want to note was that in that patch, which small but kind of big because we all hate this person, is that Satchel actually no longer does damage to allies, which is great. Because if you're that
Finally,
guy or
yeah.
gal that decides you just want to blast pack in the middle of a short and just push blindly with your rocket that now comes out slower because you're a Pepega, you are the problem, my friend. But you will no longer be my problem because I don't get damaged because of your dumb blast pack. Blah, blah, can't say words placement. So yeah,
That's
I,
all
I
right.
actually like that charge and I like that
I do
change,
feel
and I
safer
think
now.
it's going to help out. Yeah, yeah. It was something that genuinely, like, I know that abilities do damage to opponents like mollies and stuff, uh, but it's one of those things that I never really quite agreed with from the beginning, where I was like, why is this? Why is this there? What is this? What is this hope to serve? Like, oh, you want the character whose whole ID is to just blow things up, to be careful around their teammates. Like, come on, you know?
Yeah,
Well, there's
Thank
a
you,
it
difference
reminds
thank you,
too,
me of
right?
Riot.
Like the
it's like the
molly is going
demo
to get
man.
chucked at the opponents, like the mollies are going to be thrown at the
Yeah,
opponents and all that. Where like blast pack is getting used right next to your teammates all the time, so you can't avoid it.
yeah,
Like if you
yeah,
see like a phoenix with like a dumb molly, you're like, all right, well I can get out of the way. Whereas like Raze just blows you up, and there's nothing you can do. So
yeah.
I think it's just a really good quality of life change for non Raze players.
Well, I think Raze has probably had the most quote unquote touches from any other agent perspective in Valorant's history so far. So the ever
Seems
tweaking of
reasonable.
Raze continues, but we also have some new skins coming out as well. And that's always the
Mm,
most exciting part of my week is seeing what money
delicious.
I'll be forced to spend
Ooh,
down the road.
yes.
But this is a greater discussion here. So a lot of cool designs. Riot has really nailed, in my opinion, a lot of the design aspects. Like I don't know exactly how this gun works, but it looks cool. It looks like
Who
something like
cares?
a
Yeah.
like exactly. It looks like an avatar gun or something like that. It just doesn't physically make a ton of sense, but it's there and it shoots. Oh my god, there it is. And the knife too. Oh,
Were
it's a
you
whole
referring
suite of
like
guns.
James Cameron's Avatar or like the
Yeah,
cartoon Avatar?
exactly.
Oh,
Oh, it's
okay.
yeah,
All
no,
right,
I
I can
was
see
yeah,
that.
James. I've never actually seen that movie, so I don't even know what I'm referencing
Really?
in general. But it's blue, and that's how I connect the
All right.
dots. That's how my brain works.
I was wondering what the connection was there. Okay, that clears it up. Thanks.
There is none. I just see. I hate being checked on my references because I literally they're surface deep. So I appreciate
You
that.
have the wrong
I
person
really
on your show this week, then. I'm sorry, man.
do.
Yep,
Well, here's a
you
I
question
love
really
for
these
you
do.
skins,
then.
though.
When
I think it's
when it
great.
comes to skins, there's this. We had this conversation yesterday in our pre-show. Do you think that the gun skins are too distracting? Like they draw too much attention away from like the game as being played. Like when I saw the dragon skin come out, for instance, and the nebula skin, like here's another one. It's constantly moving, and it's like this visual.
My
It's this
favorite
trick
skin.
because
Love it.
it looks amazing, but I can't
Yeah.
stop looking at it. So I'm sure that Mercs here is having a great time doing whatever he's doing, but it draws a lot of attention away. So either that's a really good thing or a really bad thing. So I'll let you weigh in first, Golden Boy.
I love this skin personally. It's one of my favorites. I used to run Prism like all the time because I like I
Purple.
tend to like the cleaner skins. But
Yep.
because of the way that this one looks with the nebula, like it just I love it. So I'm okay with it. But here's the thing though, I don't like the this new one. I'm not the spline, I guess is what, or the spleen. I don't know. I don't like
Slime.
yeah, I don't like this new skin. I'm like very rarely am I ever in the anti, purchasing of skin department, right? Like I'm always out there. You guys, I've been on this show so many times now, and all I'm ever doing is talking about how much
Talk about
money I'm
skins.
giving Riot, but this time around, I'm cool passing on this for the first time ever. You heard it here first on
Wow.
Well, this
Valorant.
one here, you mean you're not buying this one?
No, it looks it just it I don't know what it is, man, but it
It's not
makes
really a
me
gun
like
anymore, is it?
uncomfortable. Yeah, it looks like I'm holding like a series of noodles. I don't know. I
What is
just feel very
there's
thrown
that
off
what's
by
that
it.
phobia? There's like a phobia where like you're afraid of like things coming out of holes or like, little like stuff like that
I'm
where it's
definitely
like
afraid of things coming out of
Phobophobia, I believe
holes.
is what it's
yeah,
called.
like a beehive, like eggs in a beehive or something like that makes people
Right.
uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
like that sort of phenomenon, right? And I feel like these guns have a little bit of that going on. Now that said, I did get the Phantom version of this. I like it. I think it looks awesome, but I can definitely see how it would make other people uncomfortable. But I will say, I do like that they're basically going with a lot of stuff where it doesn't need to look like a gun in a traditional sense. It can
Right.
have that same shape as long as it's recognizable from a distance when you're looking at someone
Yeah.
and seeing them hold a gun, you know what gun it is. As long as they keep that silhouette recognizable, they can do whatever they want with the design. I think the wilder
I
the
have
better,
no
honestly.
idea what guns those are. I know one of them was the classic and one of them was the knife. So I guess the other one was the Phantom. But I guess that's kind of where
So
my
that's a
question was
problem
coming
then.
from. Is do
Yeah.
you think it's cloudy and distracting to like what is that like? Do you think that is a good thing or a bad thing when it comes to the overall experience of say a viewer? Since we'll be talking about esports later on anyway, and you better believe they're going to want to be showcasing those skins during their esports broadcasts.
The silhouette
Yeah.
needs to be recognizable for sure. And I think that was a problem with some of the dragon skins too, is that sometimes it got a little bit tricky to tell what was what, like
Yeah.
because the judge, they kind of just you can kind of just make a chubby dragon, but they didn't really do that as much. So I think that one gets confused a little bit, in my opinion, with some of the other ones. So I like I said, go wild, but as long as the silhouette is recognizable, and I think some of them kind of push that a little bit. Maybe the spline line does a little bit.
The judge has a
Absolutely.
giant testicle on it as well, which also
What do you squeeze to make the
really
dragon fire? That's what I'm curious about. Like I never figured that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I
don't wanna
really
know,
didn't
maybe.
want to go down this road again because I mean that was my very first question when I saw the dragon skin release. I'm like, where are we holding the
Natural.
dragon from exactly, and what is
Yeah.
triggering the gun?
What is
So,
I
I'm telling you, he's
Yeah.
squeezing the genital. Anyway, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
let's talk about roster moves before we embarrass ourselves any further
natural
here. So
transition.
we
That's
from testicle to roster moves. That's why I'm the host. I'm very professional. Let's
There you
talk about roster moves. We do have a little video here on the update for NIP. Okay, so this is probably the cleanest I will say change, even though it is a little early in NIP's short lifespan, but the team just was not performing, and in the ultra hot EU landscape where G2 is the lumbering giant, they had to make a change. So they did bring in Sayf. I want to say safe every time I see his name, but I'm going to say Sayf. That is that's and they're also going to change their head coach as well, bringing in Emil. So interesting change here. Golden Boy, I guess I'll give you the first pass on this one. Do you think that changes to NIP were required this early?
You know, yeah. It's not the worst idea. NIP have been having some struggle as of late, and I think when we saw them at Blast, like I never really felt like they were in a position where they were in a position of power, if that makes sense, right? Just even looking at their previous results, they lost to a Team Liquid squad that was just not running a single smoke. Okay, they weren't running
Right.
smokes at all, and
Right.
you would think like contemporary wisdom would tell us that smokes are good, and yeah, they were running like a really aggressive flash composition, Team Liquid. Uh, but even then, NIP just could not shut it down. And then this gave Liquid, in my opinion, it gave them false confidence because then they're just like, this
Yeah.
works. This is genius. And then they go and they take this against, like G2
G2.
or FPX, and they just get butt slapped. So I don't know. It has been a really bad run for them, and even in analyzing like all of their wins that they have had, right? And go to the Spike, and you'll see the results. They hold a lot of L's, and the wins that they do have are simply just not against teams that are that
Yeah.
notable. I think their best win probably was against Big, and even then, I mean, Big hasn't even been all that impressive in Europe either. So I think that there was just some big changes. What was surprising though was they got Safe. I believe it's Safe, by the way. I could
Yeah.
be wrong. Someone in the chat. It's like Sife, but with an F. So it's Sife.
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you so much,
I'll-
Mike.
I'm desperately trying to avoid
Hmm.
butchering the proper pronunciation of his first name because I just don't want to do that. But
I just
I
wish
believe it's
they made it easy.
yeah,
That's all I
exactly.
wish.
But
Uh, but they picked up Safe from Bonk,
Bonk.
which
Yeah.
that was one of the teams that they were having problems with. Bonk is a good squad, so that I thought Bonk was going to get picked up as a full unit. So ninjas and pajamas coming by with the ninjas and the money, clearly is enough to kind of lure Syph over to NIP. So they're going to be in a rebuilding phase. I'll give them like maybe two events. I would say two events before we start to see this team gel together, and then we'll see where they go from there.
And Doa, looking at the I'm not sure how familiar you are with the lead up to NIP's roster, but there was a time where we expected to see the likes of Pora and a few of the other Turkish players to potentially wind up with this squad, but they ended up going for a full roster of players that they felt would be a better fit together, and obviously that hasn't worked out. So looking forward for a team like NIP, as G2 is this big kind of obstacle that everyone in Europe is going to try and traverse. Is there enough real estate on the table, do you think, for them to put together a contender?
I don't know. I'm not super familiar with the EU scene, honestly, so hard
Right.
to answer that. I know Turkey traditionally has produced a lot of really great players and other Riot games as well. So you'd imagine there's the talent out there. There's got to be somebody, but G2 does look pretty unstoppable. So I have
At
no
this
idea.
point, yeah. Yeah, I hear you there, and I think that we've been kind of waiting for this Turkish squad with CNED and all these dudes to kind of come together and start putting together
Mhm.
a squad under a banner and start putting some results up, but we just haven't seen it yet. So I'm wondering what's happening there. Maybe we'll see some development there. But we also have New York based, by the way, and Box New York, by the way, New York.
How can you
They have
tell?
announced their roster. Let's watch it. It's where are we here, Golden Boy? Walk us through.
Oh well, we in my home, baby. That's what's up. Times Square. What it do?
Yeah.
You got a couple of those tubes coming in from the sewers just to add that extra character to the setting.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And then we go into Valorant. Anyway, so yeah, I'm excited for this. I have known that Ambox have been working on building a Valorant team for quite some time now. They had some leads previously that I can't talk about, but it didn't end up coming to fruition. But they ended up with with this squad, and I actually think it's a pretty decent team so far. They similarly enough they'll have a long road to climb. I believe they played recently in one of trying to see if I could find it here on VLR. I want to say they played in a Nursery Gamers tournament recently. And yeah, so they played in the NSG Open qualifiers, and it was Android, Ye, Josh RT, Akis, and Seb, which could be a decent roster. I'm not like, are they going to win championships? Are they going to be Sentinels? Not right now, no. But Android's exciting. So Android being on this team though is quite exciting, and I think like this is if anyone is familiar with Ambox, like those guys, like they really focus on just like making sure that their players are very well taken care of. They have a great
Yeah.
reputation with the NYXL and the New York Subliners, because this is the same organization that owns the Excelsior and Subliners from OWL and CDL respectively. That said, I also don't think they're going to continue with Andbox as their name.
Right.
I do expect a
Little muddy.
rebrand from this squad. Yeah,
Mhm.
I do expect a rebrand from this team in the future. I just don't think that they're prepared to reveal that yet.
Well, they do have some
I don't think
streamers
your
under that
internet's
title,
prepared
so
for
maybe
Oh no. Oh, it seems like I am having internet problems. Oh no.
a little bit.
Go on, Doa.
Oh. Yikes. Well, I was gonna say they do have some streamers under the Andbox flag. I know Pine from NYXL and Overwatch streams on that now, so maybe they're looking to expand that. But either way, I mean, it seems like a solid org is to be a part of. Android's an exciting pickup, of course, and the their style I think is one of the best styles in Overwatch as far as the NYXL brand. And so it's cool to see, you know, that level of aesthetic, I think, come to Valorant as well too. I know it's kind of an outside the game thing, but they make a lot of cool apparel, and apparel's, you know, a neat part of the scene as well. And Valorant has definitely kind of like angled itself towards being that like very stylish FPS. So I think it's cool to see them get into the game, and I'm excited to see what kind of visual stuff they come up with. Honestly, as a former graphic
Yeah, and
designer, that excites me.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the one thing I've noticed mostly from Andbox is they put forth a very professional and clean. They don't kind of fall into the same tropes as so many other new entries to esports often do. They kind of keep it clean, and when they're ready to announce something, they put it out there, and they do so in a nice fashion. So
I gotta say,
there's a
like
couple of
I hated the NYXL logo when it first came out, but it's grown on me so much since then. And like the way they utilize it is super impressive. So I'm willing to wait and see whatever they do with this. I'm willing to give
That's
it
the
a
best kind
chance.
of logo. That is like you have like this malleable kind of shift where it's like, what is this even? And then you kind of look at it longer. You're like, okay, I think I'm starting to see it. And then you're like, oh, that's the Excelsior logo. You know it anywhere. And I guess that's kind of what
Yeah,
happens, right? But
that's cool.
there's an interesting storyline here that kind of leads us into our next bit of roster news, which is they're missing 3 players. And as it turns out, Dignitas has just lost 2 players. So maybe they can mash them together and make a full team
Hmm.
right away. Because as it turns out, Shanks' trial has ended, and we have decided not
Oh,
to sign him to our roster. We thank him for his time with the team during our trial and wish him the best of luck in his career. Also, we have mutually agreed to release Poised as the team has decided to go in another direction. We are confident he'll also find success as he continues his career and thank him for his time with our team. This in a bubble is like, oh, okay, well, it just didn't seem to work out. However, there's this
Yeah.
looming, enormous mushroom cloud of match fixing allegations that is covering the entire CSGO scene, and it's leaking
yeah.
over into Valorant. And there's no one who knows more about match fixings and its long winding implications than Brax. And he says it himself. How can people look at my story and think throwing a match is a good idea? Please don't ruin your future career for temporary self gain. For those of you who have no idea what's happening, there is a massive CSGO investigation ongoing right now with the SIC looking into match fixing allegations across MDL and what we'll call the blanket of tier 2 Counter Strike. So many pros, as you kind of read, we can just go through them here. Have weighed in on this topic, basically stating and heavily suggesting that this roster move from Dignitas is directly related to the match fixing allegations and issues that are ongoing in the MDL / tier 2 CS:GO scene. And it is not necessarily confirmed, but if you're to take the word of all these pros,
Uh,
this is directly related. So again, we'll start with you, Golden Boy. Do you think that this is a match fixing related issue?
You know, honestly, given what we're seeing from all the players, and yeah, I'm not. I don't want to make a blanket statement and say like, oh, you know, like every
Definitely.
like MDL level player was doing that. But you know, firstly, I will say I understand the reasoning as to why. Is it a legitimate reason, or is it a good reason? Is any reason a good reason to cheat? No. But can one come to the table with a just a lens of understanding and just be like, well, how does it get to this point, right? And I think the question needs to be asked because yes, put blame toward the players. Yes, continue to put pressure on the players to not do this, to not act in nefarious ways and to, match fix games. But also, this is a broader question for tier two Counter-Strike, tier two esports in general have huge problems because how are these players expected to commit and get to the level where they are supposed to be as good as some of the top players in the game if there's just zero support structure for them? They're not taking any kind of money in. Like we always talk about how esports is a place with a wealth of opportunity, but I think it's a wealth of opportunity for everyone except tier two players. Like if you get lucky and somehow manage to break through, that's great. But it just doesn't happen as much. And that's why you saw so many of those players jump ship over to Valorant because there was nowhere to go in
Right.
Counter-Strike, it seems like. You always see the
Mm.
same players and the same teams and it's always the same thing. Like it's how do you break into that? Like I genuinely don't know. And you see it across all sorts of games, by the way. It's not just Counter-Strike, just so that we are abundantly clear. It's just that Counter-Strike
Right.
obviously has the longest history. And when you open in with the fact that you have actual betting on fake skins in your game, that
Yeah.
kind of opens Pandora's box to make some really bad decisions for young people, is what we're
Yeah.
seeing right now. So there's this is a multi-layered problem. Like it's a Valve issue because why the hell are kids able to gamble skins? That's number one. That's ridiculous. Why are the players match fixing? Why are they doing that? Why are the teams that are signing them not providing them with a means to be able to live? If they're so dedicated to them, why are they not doing that? So I feel like that this is multiple issues all combined into one, but the ones that are really going to get just absolutely destroyed out of this, and it's going to keep happening, is the players, because the players are going to be they're the story, but no one's talking
Right.
about why is it that MDL isn't like a viable option, or why is it challengers, or whatever the system may be. I don't know.
Right.
That's my opinion on it. I really hope that it's something that changes, but honestly, I don't see it happening because viewers, even though diehard viewers say that they care, they don't watch. So, what reason is for there to have any kind of investment, right? I'm saying there's so many layers to all of this; it's insane.
So we do
I
have a couple moments here, Doe, and I'll let you respond. But I wanted to kind of put
Okay.
the shell over your answer of if you could, as the smart individual you are, in 2 to 3 minutes, can you just kind of cover your opinion on the socioeconomic circumstances regarding tier two Counter Strike and the ranging factors of income, viewership, and support? 2 minutes, please.
I mean, it's the same in every game. When it comes to it, I think Golden Boy absolutely nailed it when he said that this is an issue with a lot of different layers, and we really need to examine not just and we need to not just condemn the players that are involved in this, but the people around them that are maybe leading them to do this or making them do this. In the Korean esports scene, there were major issues with match fixing on a large scale. One of the most prominent StarCraft 1 players ever was caught doing this. And in League of Legends, we had a team called AHQ Korea where their coach was forcing them to throw games, and the guilt and a lot of other things caused one of their players to jump out a 12-story window. And magically, he survived because he crashed through the roof of their recycling shed and landed in a big thing of cardboard boxes. So he was
Wow.
severely injured, but he lived. I know, but still, like, you never wanted to get to that point. So, as someone who remembers that morning, seeing that this person that I casted multiple times jumped out a window and tried to kill himself, I think of these issues as very serious because I've seen what it can lead to. The mental toll it takes on the players that are part of this too. Of course, it's a bad idea to match fix, but you have to think about, like, why the person would do this in the first place, what their life situation is. It's much bigger than just you match fix, you bad. There's a lot more
Yeah.
that goes into it, and I hope as more stuff becomes uncovered with this, we direct our anger towards the people that deserve it most, which sometimes is the players, but not always. And so we got to look at the broader picture and make sure that the environment that causes this type of thing to happen is dealt with more than anything else.
Absolutely. And we are getting ready for the interview here. I just want to put a cap on this, and that I think you nailed something really important there, that there's a variety of factors that affect these people. both economics and professionally and all these different things. There's multiple points of pressure for these guys, and ultimately you're going to pay the price when it comes to integrity related issues, one way or another, because unfortunately you kind of only get one shot at integrity, and in the court of public opinion, which is the most prevalent court we have right now, these guys are going to be taking a lot of heat, regardless of what's been substantiated and what hasn't. So we'll see how it goes. It's still ongoing. There's been a lot of allusion to the fact that there's going to be more information coming very soon. So we'll have to wait and see. But for now, it is time. We're going to start talking First Strike, and we have a little video prepared for you. So let's watch that, and we'll get right into the interview with Kasra right after this.
Hey everyone, we're here today to share some exciting news on a topic I know many of you are extremely passionate about, and that's esports. It is crazy to think that not even a year ago, most of you didn't know Valorant even existed. And for us, we were eagerly preparing for our grand reveal at the League of Legends 10-year anniversary event. Even then, when we were hyper-focused on our game's launch, our hearts, our minds, our imaginations were looking forward to the future, for all the very best ways we could support the community in the long term. Valorant was designed from the ground up to be a deeply competitive game, one that with the right care and attention, we believe could grow into a leading global esport. Here at Riot, esports is baked into our DNA. Over the past 10 years, we've grown League of Legends into an esport whose biggest moments could stand shoulder to shoulder with their counterparts in traditional sports. So, when it came time to search for the very best team to grow the Valorant esport, we didn't have to look very far. I'm here today to introduce you to two folks who will be leading the esports efforts for Valorant, Waylon Roselle and John Needham.
Hello, I'm John Needham, the Global Head of Esports at Riot Games.
And I'm Waylon Roselle, the Senior Director of Esports at Riot Games. Today, we want to share our next steps to build Valorant into the world's leading FPS esport.
2020 was a breakthrough year for Valorant. Despite the pandemic, the Valorant launch exceeded our wildest expectations, pushing us to dream bigger and accelerate all our plans.
The unprecedented launch momentum pushed us to unlock competition around the globe as quickly as possible. We knew that the only way to create a foundation that was authentic to Valorant and could support the esport for years to come was through a collaborative effort that included fans, players, teams, and organizers from all over the world. Our community guidelines unlocked hundreds of competitions during the summer. Whether it was grassroots events, local leagues, or the more than 20 Ignition series, we couldn't have been more thrilled with the response and interest all of you have given Valorant esports thus far.
We also saw some of the most talented players in the world converge on the game.
I want to say their current win rate on this is somewhere in the 40s currently. Some kills are starting to come through though. Zombs gets 2, Zombs gets 3, Zombs with 4, Zombs with the ace!
Sparking incredible rivalries and nail-biter overtimes, fueling Valorant to become today's fastest growing esport. As a result, today we're announcing our next step for Valorant esports and the first tournament organized by Riot Games, First Strike.
This extended event will provide the first opportunity for players in North America, Europe, Asia, Latin America, and other places around the world to earn the title of Valorant Champion in their region. Starting in October, merit-based qualifiers all over the world will begin narrowing down a field of competitors. These events, leading up to the First Strike finals in December, will allow both established teams and amateur squads to showcase their greatness. So start building your teams and be on the lookout for additional details on the qualification process.
As we build towards a future where Valorant esports rivals the scale of League of Legends, you'll continue to see us increase support across all fronts. We're going to invest into expanding our broadcast capabilities to build a best-in-class viewing experience. We're pushing to develop new and innovative methods for you to engage with our sport. And we'll continue to grow our internal teams while partnering with leading experts to ensure Valorant becomes the genre-defining esport of its generation.
Our aspiration is to build Valorant into the next great esport, one that is worthy of your lifelong attention and interest. We spent the summer watching and listening to feedback, and we're hard at work driving improvements to the esports experience. For example, ahead of First Strike, we're partnering with Anna and the Valorant development team to ship much-needed observer tool updates, as well as a round reset feature that will help competitive integrity. First Strike is just the beginning. You can expect many more Valorant tournaments from Riot Games as we build this esport with you. Thank you for all of your support, and to all of our current and aspiring pro players, good luck.
The announcement video that came out today, and we are very excited to be joined by Kasra Jafroodi once again. I always forget the title, but he's the Valorant Esports strategy lead, and he is sans his enormous whiteboard. Kasra, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me back.
So first of all, the last time we spoke was regarding the Ignition series and all the different implications that would have early on in the Riot Esports ecosystem. So I guess my first question, the softball, what were some of your takeaways from the Ignition series? What did you guys love? What did you hate? Is there anything that you kind of took away that you applied directly to First Strike?
Yeah, I think one of the things we were looking closely at is format. We saw format actually have a big impact both on players and the fan experience. I think from a player perspective, we saw a lot of qualifiers have best of fives, and we saw players get pushed to their limit as they're playing like 16-hour days. So one of the big learnings we have from there is reserving best of fives in those long matches for the highest levels of play, and ensuring that as players go through those qualifiers that they're not playing too much and they're not getting burned out. So that's something that we're prioritizing. I think from an actual broadcast format, we saw some events have qualifiers, some have invitations. We saw the value of invitations, bringing in those big names. But at the end of the day, I think having that aspirational path that anyone can compete, fight through those online qualifiers, get to the top, that's something we really liked, and we applied to First Strike as well.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the main things that we often talked about on broadcast, or at least on this show, was the parity between competition and like what do you take away from one competition that was invite based versus qualified based, the amount of teams, the amount of times they had to play, the amount of rounds in the qualifiers versus the tournament form, like having that unified factor or unified structure for the tournaments is something that we just need. So I'm glad to hear that was something that Riot looked at and saw the opportunities with as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the regions, because we were having a discussion just before the show started about the perception of the major versus minor regions, specifically Europe, Latin America, North America, and Korea. I'm going to start with the Korea discussion, because we know Europe and North America have been driving a lot of viewership. Latin America is coming up as well. It's a very geographically large region, so of course it is a major region. And Korea, so this was a question mark for me specifically, compared to say like Japan or Russia, and in some cases Turkey having the same amount of driving force between them, same interest. But focusing on specifically Korea and Japan, what was the differentiating factor between those two regions, where Korea has been sometimes perceived to be a little bit behind in their development as far as the Valorant esports scene is concerned? And is that a accurate summation of what's happening with the regions right now?
I think one of the big deciding factors for Korea is just the esports market in general. I would say it's probably one of the most mature markets in the world, commonly having esports on TV. So it's an area that we know we have a lot of growth opportunity in. And I think we just have a lot of room to grow, both for esports and for the game itself. And it's an area that we want to focus on over the next few years.
Okay.
Is there a
so I'm going to open. I was going to say I'll open up to Golden
sorry.
Boy here, and you can go ahead, Golden Boy.
But what is the difference between a major and a minor region? Because I've been watching a lot of the Japanese events, and their development as a scene has actually been pretty impressive to watch. Absolute Jupiter is like crushing, and they're like the G2 of Japan right now. They're very good. I'm curious on the differences between the major and the minor. Like, could it be viewed as a negative if you are in that minor region? Like, and what would your, I guess, words be to any of our international listeners? Potentially this could get translated, that are watching this and maybe wondering, why is my region a minor region? Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I want to start by talking about Japan, because Japan has shocked us all. I think FPS generally isn't big there. PC games aren't big. Japan has exploded, and we've been really, really excited to see that, and we want to make that a big region as well. But overall, I think for when it comes to First Strike, there isn't a big difference in major and minor. I think the reason that there is a delineation is because at the end of the day, there's only so many hours in a day, and we do have to broadcast all of these in one weekend. There are a number of regions that we said, hey, these should not overlap each other or should have minimal overlap so that our fans can kind of tune in and watch them. And those are the regions we chose to essentially not have that. But when it comes to branding, when it comes to participation, unfortunately, First Strike doesn't ladder up to a global competition anyway, so there isn't much difference. And down the line, I think when there is global competition, every region around the world will have a chance to go into that and prove that they are the best. They have the best team in Valorant.
Okay.
Eric?
Cool. Well, all right. So I've got a question for you on the TO side of things, and this might be a little bit tougher of a question, but I think it's one a lot of people are curious about. One of the big initiatives, it seems like, with Valorant Esports is to really involve a lot of the third-party TOs, organizations, endemic esports talent, as the cliche name goes. And in the video, Waylon did mention that working with those people was core to creating an authentic Valorant Esports experience. So my question for you is, going forward, what is the involvement going to look like between Riot and other organizations that want to make Valorant events? And the reason why this is a really important question is because if we look at First Strike, we're all very excited about it. It's going to be really fun to watch. These other organizations, third-party organizations, are going to be doing qualifiers essentially, which I would imagine involves, paying Riot a license fee and then essentially running an event that advertises for a bigger event that these TOs will not be doing, which is not really a viable broadcast plan for a company like this. So how do you keep these third-party companies involved in the scene if they won't have some of the biggest Valorant events out there? Because qualifiers aren't going to cut it. So I'm curious about what your plan is going forward with that.
Sure.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. I think speaking just broadly about third parties and how we kind of think about them, we're excited to work with them. We think there is an ecosystem that can involve third parties, but in a controlled way where there isn't cannibalization. I don't think everything has to be totally produced by Riot. For First Strike, we are leaning into these third-party events that are qualifiers. Some of them will look like Ignition Series events where you have these, a qualifier that's broadcast really well produced. And then First Strike is something that we wanted to lean in and show what Valorant esports can look like as a Riot-produced esport as well, because we've been watching these events and thinking about how we can really make an awesome experience for our fans. I think in the future, we are thinking about how do we involve third parties in a way that's meaningful. But to be blunt as well on this, I think Riot as a company has more flexibility to invest in these events and create these big experiences for our fans, where I think some TOs are a little bit more focused on profitability and creating an event that I think is good for their business. So I think I'm excited to come through this as Riot and invest in these events in the future as well, while finding a way to include third parties in a meaningful way.
Sure, that sounds great. I think the major concern I would have with that is when you look at other games in the past, and I'm not just targeting Riot with this, a lot of developers, I think are guilty of this in the past as well, is when you take things too fully in-house with an esport, it really prevents a lot of new faces from coming up in the scene, whether that's, to a certain extent players, but also personalities, other broadcasters, things like that. Yeah. So what's your plan to make sure that there's enough opportunities out there so that good talent is able to come up? Because if we look at other games, other esports, there's been a bit of a drought in terms of, new broadcast talent coming up specifically, through these more grassroots sort of events.
Yeah. So I think, working with third parties helps a lot with that, because generally they each have a different set of people they work with, and that allows different avenues for talent to come up. Something we can do as third parties have events is put more of a global spotlight on them and ensure that they get the best exposure possible. And then
promotion to the client and things like that, or
promotion. I think we saw with Ignition Series, we had promotion through our social channels. We actually hosted these events on our main Valorant channel and rated. I think we want to continue doing that and finding other ways to promote it. Right now, esports isn't present in the client itself. But I think as we think about what that looks like in the future, we do want to make sure that our fans can experience Valorant esports in the best way possible. And if third parties are part of that, we want them to be part of the fan experience. But ultimately, from a Riot perspective, sorry, on the talent side, from a Riot side, we're also looking at everyone out there. We're not trying to, just use our current Riot talent or people that are endemic. We're trying to essentially find the people that are best at Valorant, and we're always watching different events out there, whether it's qualifiers that frankly give more opportunity for newer talent to host stuff, or it's those bigger events that end up having usually the well-known names.
Okay. Do you think Riot would ever hire talent to be in-house talent like they do with League of Legends or something like that? Or would you prefer to keep it more freelance and spread out?
That's a fairly technical question. I don't know the answer to, because I think there's a difference. But at the end of the day, like at a high level, Riot would want to look at having the best talent possible, hosting the biggest events. I don't know whether they're freelancer or in-house is like a pretty technical question. That I think there's a talent team at Riot that would be working on that.
Well, your boy wants to stay freelance.
I said it was a
so
tougher
hook me
question.
up.
Sure.
We all have commitment issues, I guess. So as far as the balance, this is a question more for me than anything else. But you mentioned briefly that right now there's at least no immediate plans to have an integration of esports into the client. And I'm wondering, is there a not an issue, but is there a struggle, battle, conversation, whatever you want to call it, between the esports side of Valorant as a pilot project and the greater game landscape? And where do those things eventually intersect in your mind?
Funny enough, I think in most other games in the industry, there is generally a struggle between esports and game, and I think that's pretty well understood. What's really refreshing with Valorant is there isn't at all. The game team comes to us and says, what can we do? How do we make this experience even bigger and better? So the reason we don't have in-client support right now isn't because we don't want to. It's because we're trying to imagine what would the best experience possible look like, and how do we build towards that? And we want to do things that haven't been done before. Both us and the game team are at the table together brainstorming of like, if you're an esports fan and you play Valorant, what is the most fun, best experience you can have playing the game and watching the esport, and how do we connect those two as much as possible?
Okay. And I suppose we would be remiss not to ask some of the format questions as well, since we did touch on that earlier. Is there anything you can reveal to us on the format side? What would some of the potential players be looking forward to in, we'll use it because it's clearly the best region, like in say North America. So as far as just the general kind of format, what can we expect from First Strike?
Sure. I think there will be a separate announcement coming from North America that'll have more details, but I do know that every region, including North America, will have multiple qualifiers that essentially feed teams to these events that then qualify to the First Strike event. There'll be multiple qualifiers so that if you get knocked out, you do have another chance to go. And I think the big point here is that every team has to go through qualifiers. There are no invites, no matter whether you're 5 average Joes or you're, let's say, Sentinels. You have to play in our online qualifiers and prove that you're the best team, and then qualify to First Strike that way.
Is
Is
there
that going to be unified
is there
across all
seating?
regions?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be the same across all regions. And Golden Boy,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Not every format will be the same across all regions, but the general idea that every team has to qualify through a system of open qualifiers.
Now, will there be a seeding? Because like obviously G2 has dominated Europe, and I would imagine that they should have something for winning every Ignition series in Europe, right? Like what was the benefit, I guess I'm trying to get out of winning Ignition series events in your respective regions, if not to have some kind of a nod for First Strike events? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the exact qualifier format will be released later. I can't speak on behalf of our regions, but Ignition series won't have an effect on anything else in the ecosystem. It was meant to be these standalone events that were run by third parties that we could support. So in that sense, teams weren't acquiring any points. There was no circuit. There was nothing going on. And frankly, I think that's fair because some events were invite only. I think the Blast event only had 4 slots, and no other team could even compete.
Yeah.
So I do think they got some nice bragging rights.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
So I'm curious with the plan going forward. Do you see the overall structure of Valorant esports being more league-like, where you have tournaments that lead into where everything points towards the big world championship at the end of the year? Or do you see it more like CSGO, like where there's a series of majors throughout the year, and those have things that feed into them, but there's no single big defining thing. It's more of a series of big things.
I can't go too much into our 21 and future plans. That's something we're actively working on, and we're trying to do what is, I think, the best experience. We're not. I think what we'll see is a hybrid. I think there are things we like in League of Legends. Like the League World is the biggest esport event in the world, and I think the excitement around that is really awesome. And having that for Valorant would be really awesome in the future as well. But we're trying to figure out a system that I think is best for our fans and has the best experience overall, because we do see the importance of those major beats throughout the year as well.
What do you personally like? Do you like everything leading to the big year-end event, or do you like sort of more the majors kind of style? What I'm curious about what your personal preference is with this.
Sure.
What's the mind
So
of
I think,
Kasra? Let's do that.
Yeah.
I think from my personal, speaking for myself, I think leagues have value because they give teams continuous exposure, and then that allows them to actually make long-term investment in the sport. Like you can't sign a sponsor and what are you going to sell them? You don't know, because you don't know how much matches you're going to be playing the next year. So I do see the value of leagues in that. At the same time, majors are really fun. Bringing teams from around the world together in one area multiple times a year sounds really awesome. And even going through Ignition Series, seeing rivalries form, there's nothing more I want right now than seeing a Final Four with Absolute Jupiter, Vision Striker, G2, and Sentinels. Like that is, if I could fly them all to some remote island and have them play in that would be awesome. And I think having more moments like that throughout the year.
I think we were talking about Fiji last time, were we not?
Yeah.
Were we not talking about
right?
All right.
Was it Fiji or Bermudas? I don't know. Somewhere.
Yeah,
Why don't we go to
Yeah.
UFC Fight Island? Let's go to the Fight Island. Let's go there.
We'll set up a bunch of. We'll have to have like a name for it. Like we'll have like a bunch of tents. We'll have some great music acts. We'll call maybe we'll be like Ignition Fire or something like that. We'll have to figure it out. But anyway, I do want to reflect a little bit on that last little note that you talked about when it comes to leagues. This actually comes from the chat. This question. So are there plans, or we'll say, is there interest, I should say, for Riot to create a league like ESEA for CSGO with weekly matches for players of all levels? Ignition and First Strike only have large tournaments for the highest level of players, but I was wondering if there were plans for more inclusive league-style competitions.
Yeah, I think there's like two parts to that, because there's like the pro league, and then you have your whole amateur ecosystem, which I think your semi-pro, which is what ESEA is addressing. Overall, we want to create opportunities up and down that entire ecosystem. That takes a while to build. It's not something we can just flip a switch on. And I think it's something that we're going to be developing a lot more in 21. I think open qualifiers in the beginning naturally develop that, because any team can compete in that. And then will probably be other smaller tournaments that happen during that. But ultimately, looking at the future, we do want to develop an ecosystem where your semi-pro team could have an ecosystem to play in and could play regularly, and then look at the pro scene as the next level from that.
Okay. We lost your mic, Golden Boy.
I think you're muted, Golden Boy.
Okay. We'll go to you, Doa. Do you have any other follow-ups?
Let's see. I was thinking of one. As far as the major versus minor regions go, it is really, really cool to see Japan start to come up on the PC gaming front. That's I think something a lot of us in esports have been looking forward to for a long, long time. So that'll be something that'll hope to develop. But I for the record, I'm totally on board with including Korea in the major right now. Even if Japan may look like the stronger region in the game, I think it's wise to include Korea just because of their esports history. Their infrastructure is much better. And stylistically, I've always said I think Valorant is a game that should play very well to that scene. And I feel like it's only a matter of time penetrating the internet cafe culture where most gamers game in Korea is a little bit tricky sometimes. And Valorant, with things like their anti-cheat software, I'm sure is a huge rat's nest of issues with the software and the internet cafes that exists over there and all that kind of thing. Not that it's filled with cheating software, but there's a lot of interesting software, shall we say, that enables people to play many, many different games on these computers and these internet cafes. And I can see how that would run into trouble with Valorant. But I do think it's a good idea to include that in a region. I am curious, too, with that. Is there a big effort right now to involve some of those television broadcasters? You mentioned TV earlier, OGN would be the big one, obviously, a company that I worked with for a number of years, who we know can produce really good stuff. But have there been talks to include like an OGN or possibly a different TV broadcaster over there for Valorant events?
Yeah, I think we've been talking to TV, different broadcast companies, frankly, around the world, and making sure that our content can be as accessible as possible. There's no reason that's holding us back from being on TV.
Okay.
Well, boy,
There's no set plans I can
Yes,
share, but that's something that I know our regional teams are working on for sure.
Cool.
So I'm interested to know when it comes to the I guess the development of Valorant, because we have this the ever present balancing and addition of new content. Is there plans, and as someone, as you just said, has been talking with the game development team, is the release and cadence of content in Valorant specifically designed to lead into or support things like First Strike?
Yes, I think we're working with them very closely, looking at our calendars together and saying, hey, we know we have events. How do we merge our calendars and make sure that our events can work closely hand in hand? I think you'll see both ways, where like some content might get teased in esports broadcast that isn't live in the game, or the other way where content goes live in the game before an event for that specific event. I think the first easy thing that we can knock out is ensuring that the game is stable for that event, and ensuring that there aren't any new agents released immediately before the event. We saw that with Killjoy, and I think going forward, as we have a more defined ecosystem, we want to make sure map releases and agent releases are timed so that you don't suddenly get a surprise from the post scene.
Good strategy.
Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we
Can you hear
can.
me?
Welcome back.
Hey, oh my God. I had so many questions. I wanted to jump in. I was so excited. The technology blocked
Your
me.
hand is up in the back of the room, like, teacher, pick me. Yeah.
Listen to me. Okay, so recently you guys released the API for spikes like VLR and Spike to be able to dive into the stats, which has been infinitely helpful for us. Is there any chance that we get in game a kind of follow observer tool or something like that, so that I don't have to cast over vMix anymore? Because it seems like we're going to continue to be doing these remote broadcasts for a very long time now. So I'm just curious if there's any tools that you can maybe kind of tease or discuss about, and also like something that I really enjoy from, say, like Overwatch League or Call of Duty League is that you have the baked in, I guess, upper thirds, right? Baked in graphics for like putting in, team here, like just typing it out, like team A here,
Yep.
team A B. Is that something we can also potentially expect down the line? Maybe even giving TOs an opportunity, like in Counter-Strike, to customize those things to their liking?
Yep. So I can maybe just talk broadly about Observer, and kind of this will be, I think, part of that. Overall, I think Observer has come a long way since the game launched. I was actually watching a tournament from closed beta and just remember that we didn't even have like outlines. We didn't have their health bars. There's like a lot. We also know there's
one event we did without player icons. You remember that one when we didn't have player icons? That was a good one.
Yep.
I remember that one.
Yeah, on the
Pepperidge
minimap.
Farm
Yeah,
remembers. Yeah, it was a good time.
We also know that we have a long way to go, and I think there's like a list of features that we know are good that we want to add at some point. Like I think the first one is having more observer slots. We have 2 right now. I think having more than that, having a lot more would help unlock a lot of other features and a lot of other things that we can do with it. Having a control panel for observers to just have more control. We saw some features come through, like having tournament mode as well, and allowing actually server selection so that these online matches can be fair as well. But we want to have more controls. We want to have cinematic cameras so that people can create, I would say, better content as well. We saw some organizers do some crazy stuff with the camera where we'd have to actually ask them, say, hey, how did you do that? Because like we don't know how to do that since the camera controls are fairly limited.
Oh, was that the event where they had the faceplates toggle for every time they switch? I'm trying to remember which one it was. It was a European
Every
event.
time it would switch. Yeah.
I remember one example. I think it was a Blast event where they had a camera slowly panning across the map, looking down. And we know that the camera speed, it doesn't go at that speed, so we're trying to figure out how they actually did that. I think having some more
maybe.
What was
Could have
that?
been a controller. Could have been a controller.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
I think having stable camera positions is big. That's something a lot of other games have, where you can quickly cut to, like, if you're taking a B site, you know exactly what cameras you want to use when the team is coming in.
Yeah, camera presets.
Team colors is a big one. We know with a game with abilities, you see two sage walls. It's really hard to say who's who, or you see the smokes come in. We know having that some sort of a ability to tell what the team's part is going to be important. So I think that's something we'll see coming, and ultimately just having that visual clarity come out. And then round reset is another thing we just talked about as well in the video. But essentially, when a match goes wrong, which I haven't seen happen to me times, thankfully, but right now there's no way to restart where you left off. We want to start.
Yeah.
We want to create that ability to be able to actually restart where you left off, so teams don't have to make the decision of starting from the beginning or continuing the match and having a result that they don't really believe in. On the broadcast UI side, I think that's something that we want to lean a little bit more on the API that actually unlocks anyone who's broadcasting to build their custom HUD, and gives them the data that they need to essentially show, let's say, the buy round, the weapons that both teams are buying, or the money in it. And we do think there's a lot of value in giving that flexibility and allowing both our broadcast team and the community to build what looks best for the experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
In regards
I've
to the
got-
resets, I just want to note it did happen at the FTW event, where we had to. I think me and Riv had to fill for close to. I think I want to say it was like 10 minutes because we had to reset an entire game. So just want to thank you and make sure pass that note ahead. Thank you. I would have liked it a week ago, but I'll take it now. You know what I'm saying? I'm good.
Sometimes that support shows up just in the nick of time, and sometimes it arrives a week late, like some of my packages do. So as far as the region discussion, there was another question that came out of the chat, actually from one of the pro players from FPX. Angel asks, how will the regions for teams be decided for in the greater context of the FPX having players from multiple regions that are considered major? So Europe, or major and minor. So in this case for FPX, it would be Europe and Russia or CIS.
Yep, I think it'll do. Well, once we come out with the tournament rules, there will be requirement. Though there will be some rules that come out of, like, hey, what defines what region a team is in. There'll be details coming out in October. I think it'll look a lot like League of Legends, which I believe has like 3 out of 5 players have to be from that region. Now, from the broader question of FPX in general, because FPX, as we know, is a Chinese brand, I think teams will have to start making a decision of like where they want their team based. We've seen some teams pick up in multiple spots. I think Cloud9 has a Korean and an NA team. I think Gen G is also doing the same. And Immortals obviously has MIBR in Brazil as well. So I think that these teams will have to start making decisions of where do they want to be based around the world and where do they want to build that brand.
So you're saying like an organization like Cloud9 would have to pick one of those? They wouldn't be able to run a team in each region independently?
Once we have global competition that ladders up, I think we want to avoid a situation where like you have Cloud9 versus Cloud9 in Worlds, because that's not fun for anyone.
Right. Extremely confusing. So, and that kind of leads naturally into a question I think a lot of people would extrapolate from the other Riot esports, specifically League, and that's franchising. Is that still a question for another day? Is that still down the road? Is there movement towards that angle? And what is the current feeling internally when it comes to franchise teams?
It's something we're still exploring of, figuring out what is the best system. Franchising isn't always the answer, but I think there is a need for just some sort of formal team partnerships that allows teams to invest. There's not much I can talk to because it's still things we're exploring right now. But ultimately, our major goal in the short term for 21 to have these big global competitions that allow teams to come together.
All right.
Okay.
And also just
Golden Boy,
did we clarify just for the viewers, this event, First Strike, no international event, so we will not get G2 Sentinels. Well, if they make it qualifier, they could get just G2 could lose to, I don't know, Party Parrots. Who knows if they're even still a thing? But the but when I know, right? But when there's always a chance the Parrots will rise again. When could we expect that? I mean, we're starting to see more traditional sports leagues operate things in a bubble. I think I'm even hearing rumblings that Call of Duty is Call of Duty's maybe experimenting with the idea of doing a bubble, Overwatch is doing that. I think League of Legends currently are doing that. Is that like something that we could potentially see where we maybe just get like a bubble event or something like that? I'm down to live in a bubble for like a week or 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll chill. Just give me a computer so I can play video games, and then beyond that, I'm good. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, First Strike is not an international event. I wish it was. We really want it to be. I think back, if I think like a year ago, when we were just thinking about Valorant Esports, we really wanted to have global competition by now. And it's kind of sad that we're in a situation where we can't. So First Strike will have to be regional. I think as we look at 21, we're trying to evaluate like what does it mean to when can we have LAN events both in a region, pan-regional, or a global level? Just because each of them I think will be on a different timeline. Frankly, as we know, different regions are on a different curve right now with COVID. So what's going to be possible is going to be different. When we have open qualifiers, I think that bubble gets a lot harder to run because you just have more uncertainty of who the teams are that are going into it. And ultimately, I think having a bubble is fairly taxing on players as well. But it's something we're still exploring and trying to figure out. At the end of the day, how do we get the best competition for our fans, and how do we get global competition?
I think I would love to see. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
That's fine. I was going to say, I think the approach overall of moving slowly is encouraging with Valorant. We've in the industry, we've seen other instances of companies trying to move too quickly in terms of getting their esport to be this big global phenomenon. Not going to name names, but it's good to see kind of a little bit of a backtracking on that approach, where it's more of a measured. Let's actually let this game kind of breathe and build on its own a bit and take it one logical step at a time. So as far as things like the franchising and all that goes, I think it's good to see a slower, more measured approach out of this so far from Valorant.
Yeah, and we knew that for a game, especially in the FPS genre, to be popular, it has to grow with the community, which is why we wanted to start with the Ignition series. We wanted the orgs and teams that people already know start throwing these tournaments, and we want this promise of Valorant Esports to kind of grow with the fans together. And we're really excited at how well it's done. In fact, I think some of the events in North America, the Phase 1 in particular, broke 180,000 viewers, which is completely unheard of for a community event.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I wanted to touch on briefly, is kind of looking backwards at Ignition and then kind of using that as the model for what First Strike will be. Is there any magic that you guys were able to kind of bottle up and carry forward that you took as like, oh, we can do this again. Let's just do it, with our horsepower. And if there is anything specific that you took away, I would love to hear more about that.
I think the format was the one thing I touched on earlier that we definitely have taken away. The rivalries played a really big part, and I think that's something you're going to see us lean into a lot more. And as we build a narrative towards First Strike, going from qualifiers to First Strike, kind of leaning in on that and making sure that that narrative comes out. In Valorant, we have a lot of players with their own fan bases coming from other games, and that's something we want to lean into and lean into those personalities. We've seen a lot of our players stream before or after their tournaments and actually engage with their own fan bases, and we're really excited at essentially that micro communities that they bring with them as well.
And is there any I won't say a concern or fear that is some of the social aspects, some of the pushes, the rivalries that they won't get, maybe not get stale, but because we keep looking towards this global competition, how are you going to maintain the hype from an event to event? What's the spacing going to be like between these events?
For the qualifiers, I think they'll be fairly regional and they'll be spread out between, and they all have their own timelines starting, I think, towards the end of October, mostly probably running in November. When it comes to First Strike, everything will be on one weekend, and we'll be spacing it out as much as possible so that fans at any time that we can tune in and tune into some and watch one regional at least, or tune into one region's event, ensuring that there aren't too many happening at the same time as well.
Will there be multiple regional events happening on the same day?
Yeah, every region's First Strike finals would be between December 3rd and December 6th.
Okay,
and that's when you said
that
the schedules will be staggered, right? Because majors are going to have their blocks, and then the minors might overlap. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, minors just have more flexibility, I would say, in what time zone they want to be in, or like what time is best for them.
Got it. Got it. So you're
Okay.
actively trying
I
to
looked
ruin
at-
my sleep schedule. Fantastic.
Flexibility.
I was gonna say, I
That's
can't wait to stay up until 2 in the morning. It's gonna be a good time. Yeah. So I mean, I've kind of covered a lot of the meat and potatoes that I wanted to hit, because I know there's, when we're talking about upcoming tournaments, it's very difficult to, especially if it's months away, to kind of get some of the details and stuff like that. So I guess one of my final questions is, when can we expect more information about First Strike?
I think from this point, the information is going to go region by region, focusing on
Right.
that region's format. I don't know the answer to that because I do think they're staggering, so I don't know. It won't be one date. There will be certainly all know more information, and I know each region is in a different process of essentially finding those third-party partners as well. I don't know the answer to that, but it should be in the coming weeks.
Got it.
So in related questions that you probably aren't allowed to answer, but we're gonna ask you anyway because we've got you here. So we're gonna try to push you. Should we take First Strike as any indication that episode 1 may be coming to an end? Is this possibly going to be sort of the capstone to the episode 1 arc?
I think we've already announced probably like our general episode act structure, but I think we should see First Strike less of a capstone for episode 1 and more of a capstone for our 2020 competitive season, and that'll be most likely the last thing that happens in 2020, leading us into 2021.
My
so
final
that's-
question. Oh, go. Sorry about that. I was just gonna say.
No, go ahead,
is-
Golden Boy. I was just gonna, I'm excited at the prospect of there being seasons, and that's something we can talk about after. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're really gonna regret deferring the floor to me. So it's First Strike. So is the next event going to be Counter Strike?
It'll be Second Strike and then Third Strike, and it'll just be the thing going
Wait.
forward.
Third Strike.
And then
But then does that mean Ryu and Ken skins confirmed?
I was gonna
That's
say, then you
really
just
what
go to
I
number
wanna
4
know.
after that.
That I could get on board with. Third Strike is the best Street Fighter.
That's
Alpha,
really
Alpha
all I'm
2.
asking for. I'm just here to lighten the mood and make everyone happy and enjoy life. Because we
I can
all
actually
love this
take this one
game and
for you,
we
Casper,
really
if you
want
like.
this game to succeed.
Alex, can you just shut the up for a minute, please? That would be
You know
great.
what?
Don't break your audio again. No, I'll let you answer that one, Kasra. Can we expect Ken and Ryu skins in Valorant? That's an easy one for you, I can imagine.
No.
Oh,
They'd have to be guns. You'd have to
I
be like
guess
the
so,
dragon
yeah.
skin, but
Ooh.
it would be Ken or Ryu, you know?
yeah, I'll do again. All right, Kasra. So
Just
I
joking
suppose
out of
maybe this was like one of those interviews where maybe we skirted a topic that there was something that we wanted us to ask about, or if there's anything else that maybe we haven't touched on just due to time or circumstance. Is there any other Easter eggs you can drop with us here today? Any secrets you were willing to share that may have been thrown out with the rest of your whiteboard?
I think the one thing I'll say is there's some unique surprises that we're gonna have for First Strike, so I can't talk about them explicitly, but we're excited to see the community's reaction to them. I think it'll be a little tease of what the future of Valorant Esports can look like.
An announcement
Okay,
of an
like what?
announcement.
All right. Your esports,
what else?
baby, doing it all scoots. Announcement of an announcement. Here we go. We're moving. We're esports now, baby. That's it.
I would love to hear a little bit more about if we're looking at First Strike as the capstone to the 2020 season, and I know 2021 does seem far away, but for how rapidly this year has been progressing, at least for Valorant, is there immediate plans for a follow-up?
Yes, you'll definitely hear about that separately. I can't talk to it too much, but I think our goal is always to ensure that fans know what's next. So you'll definitely hear from us about 2021. And hopefully
Last call for questions, gentlemen. If you have anything more for Kasra. Oh, sorry, it's the VMix delay again. If you could repeat that last part for me, Kasra.
Oh, I was just gonna say, hopefully I can be on the show again when I can talk more about 2021 as well.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome. You can come on as my. We're actually looking for a third regular. So I mean, if you want to fill your Tuesdays, we've got lots of space for you, my friend.
My last question is going to be more on the fun side, because why not? We've been watching so many great events, and there've been a lot of great teams. So this is more of a softball. What's your favorite team? Who have you been enjoying? Are you even allowed to have a favorite team? I don't know why I'm asking this question, but I'm sure it makes sense in my mind. So your thoughts? Favorite team? Go. Or favorite region? Why is it NA?
I don't think I can talk about a favorite team. I think I'm just excited. I'm really excited for the first NAEU match. I'm really excited for that first. Probably going to be G2 Sentinels or probably
Can we
G2
kick
Sentinels.
Anton and Joker out of the VMix chat so we can all have a private conversation really quick? I just want to make sure that get the PR people out of here, man. No, so I'll rephrase Golden Boy's question for him. What was your favorite event to watch? Can you answer
Oh,
that?
there you go. That works.
Sure. I'll name two because I think I had two I really liked. One of them was the Blast one. I really thought the production value of that was really, really good. It pushed the bar even higher to the point that we're like, okay, we got to top that one, and that really, really did well. I like the Phase one. I think the Phase one also had a lot of hype and a lot of team fandom coming in. I really like Myth's co-stream with his cheerleading. That was a really fun one as well, and I'm excited for this weekend. Actually, there is going to be one in SEA that brings together Korea, Japan, and some other countries in that region as well as one of the first international events as well. So start to get a better idea of who some of the best teams are in Asia, and not just in the smaller regions.
Eric, any last questions?
Cool. No, thanks for fielding my my tougher esports industry related questions. It's I think it's important that developers and the scene have a really strong partnership that one can benefit the other and vice versa, and it's important to kind of keep the dialogue going and possibly have some tough conversations, but ultimately focus on whatever drives this industry forward. So thanks for fielding those.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
And just to kind of put a cap on the whole thing, first of all, thank you for spending some of your valuable time with us here. And from the very beginning broadcast of the very first Ignition Series event that I was happy to take part in, Valorant has absolutely hooked me just as a fan. So to be able to have that to look forward to in these uncertain times is always very, very welcome. So I wanted to say, first of all, thank you to yourself for coming on again. Everybody on the esports team, all the way up to the very top with Waylon. And for everyone that's been involved, we cannot wait to see what First Strike brings. And if this is the end of season 1, I can't wait to see what season 2 looks like as well. Kasra, I look forward to having you on again in the future, and thanks so much.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time. So we are really quick going to throw it to commercial. When we come back, we have more things to talk about, specifically some tournaments that may or may not be following the same etiquette as others when it comes to paying their players and others. We have agent tier lists from Hiko and Angel, and more esports news as we react to the Kasra interview, as well as some of the things said, and the Best in the West tournament. So be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Valoranting. We just got done speaking with Kasra Jafroodi from the esports team over at Riot. We also had the announcement of the First Strike tournament series that is upcoming. It'll be a regional series of tournaments that will not culminate in a global final, unfortunately, but we'll at least get to argue again who the best in the major regions are, unless you're in Europe, in which case G2 will probably win that as well. So let's talk about just some of the things that Kasra said. Quick take. We'll start with you, Eric. What did you kind of take away from the overall announcement and what Kasra had to say to some of our pointed questions?
Well, I mean, I think First Strike is really exciting. I'm hyped to see a lot more competition within various regions, especially regions like Korea, of course, which I have a bit of an affinity to with my esports history. But I think one thing that really needs to be always at the forefront of a lot of these conversations is, where does Valorant fit into the greater esports industry ecosystem? And if you have a situation where things go too far in-house at Riot, sure, you're going to have, some well-produced stuff. There's no question about that. Obviously, Worlds is great and all that every year. But, it does narrow the opportunities for people in the industry. And I'm not just talking about casters and hosts and on-camera people. I'm talking about, every level of the industry, from production people, to players.
Yeah.
If there's essentially only one big tournament series, then that means there's many more limited opportunities for players to come up. And if you really want to foster the growth of a scene in the industry, I think there needs to be, like I mentioned, when we were on the call with him, a good partnership between the developers and the third-party tournament organizers and broadcasters that there's a lot of opportunity for everybody. I think one of the I'll finish in a moment, but my last thought on that is I think one of the golden ages of any esport was a short period of time in StarCraft 2 where you had the OSL at OGN, you had the GSL at I can't remember if that was a freak already or if that was still Golem TV, and then you had the Pro League, which was a team-based tournament. So you had two big individual leagues and a big team-based league, and then you had a lot of smaller sub-tournaments that let players come up. So there was just a lot of opportunities for players. There was a lot of content to watch. And I think the pie is certainly big enough that it doesn't always need to be all in-house at a developer. So I think going forward, the more that it can be broadened, the more opportunities that can be given, the better that the game and the industry will be for it overall.
Golden Boy, what do you think?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
I'm running for president, by the way.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like
I
it.
mean, you're certainly more, if not just as, if not more qualified. So
Thank you.
I think
Certainly more
I think
qualified.
that yeah, certainly more qualified. I think that there is a so he brought up some interesting points, right? And Doa, you brought up interesting points just now, talking about like how this kind of organization of like the different kinds of options, right, the fans had in StarCraft 2, like how important that was in order to create some really meaningful storylines and great content, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
To Castro's point, though, I feel as if, and this kind of maybe it might be just too pointed toward COVID, to be honest, but I feel as if because of the fact that they don't have the franchise teams, because they can't control the ecosystem right now, that's the reason why we can't get international competition currently. That is a problem that obviously will be solved
Well,
eventually.
it's a logistical
Uh,
problem for sure.
yeah,
But
it's going to get solved
yeah,
eventually, right? I don't doubt it. It's just
we
that
did have it in other
when
games too.
yeah. It's just like I'm of two minds where it's like, would I like to see there be more? And mind you, like for the interest of my own selfish behind, like I would much rather it be a series of events that I just get a gig for, and then I
And breezing in and
move
out
on,
of.
right? Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
like I would much rather that than moving my butt over to LA to go and do the LCS version of Valorant. Like I wouldn't, not to say I would or even get offered, but I'm just speaking selfishly from my perspective. But if I'm looking at it analytically from from the POV of like how does this benefit them in the long term? Like look, they are trying to make money off of this, and I think their esport will they're taking the right steps at this point. I think they're going slowly. They're not trying to force things. I'm okay with that. I
Oh
think
yeah,
you
same.
highlighted that, Doa, right? Like I'm
Yeah,
okay with that. Um,
totally.
but if it goes slowly into a Riot controlled in-house league, I don't know, man. I'm like of two minds. Like part of me is
It's
like
hard.
excited
It's
because we
hard to
get to
choose.
yeah.
It's I know where you're coming from, Golden Boy. You want to be able to go off and do your short with Dwayne Johnson. You want to go and appear. You want to appear in multiple different esports. You just want to be available, and it's maybe it's commitment issues. Deep down, you really have to maybe just look at yourself and say, "Are
It
you
can't
ready?
be commitment
Are you
issues.
ready?"
I've been married for like 12 years, so it's clearly not commitment issues.
Well,
Okay.
maybe you've learned your
Uh
lesson already. Then maybe that's what you're trying to
maybe
say.
oh dude, maybe I did learn my lesson.
I'm not going to get
Oh,
involved
that's
in this, man.
crazy though. Yo, can we turn this into a marriage
Yeah,
counseling talk show
yeah,
and a
exactly.
Valorant
You want like
esports
a
talk
couch
show
Yeah.
to
all the
lie
same?
down on for this section?
Oh, that's crazy
The
though.
the fainting kind of.
To your point though about commitment and stuff like that, I will say, like, we're seeing the trend on franchising happen, and it's working in some areas, and it's not working in others.
Right.
I do believe, and I've said this publicly multiple times, even when I was working in the Overwatch League, and I like the Overwatch League, but I felt like LCS was just a better approach to it, or like LEC
Right.
LCS, right? Like the teams still retain their own brands, but they're bought into the success of the league. I like that,
Right.
a lot more. Not to take anything away, because like we talked
Literally
about
bought
Ambox,
in.
and I think yeah, literally bought in. Not
Well,
we
I will
talked about
say too, I
Ambox in the
think
show.
the
Go for it.
problems
Go
with
for it.
I think the problems with the Overwatch League are not the franchising side of things. That's
Oh
not
boy.
the issue there. But
oh no, no,
we're
but,
not
but
talking
what I'm mostly
about that,
referring
but
to,
yeah.
I see pros and cons on both ends of the spectrum is essentially what I'm trying to bring up here. And I think that
Yeah, definitely.
what we're getting right now, right, from Riot with First Strike and what we got with Ignition series was really just, a good amuse bouche, right? A little primer
Ooh.
before we get into some serious business, which will more than likely happen summer to end of 2021 if we're thinking about the current global situation right now and what could happen with COVID. If we get to that point, that's being very ambitious, by the way. So I do like that they're just taking these very subtle steps. I do,
I
and
agree.
I
Shout out to
think
Uber,
that
by the way, who's frothing at the mouth to get in here to talk about the Overwatch League.
Well,
Hey,
Uber,
you know, I
Uber
mean,
just
like,
called me an ex-wife. I'm not an ex-wife, dude. I'm literally about to work with you guys like in 2 weeks. I'm
Hey,
just
and
cooking
and
stuff
I,
out.
I have been very positive
Yeah.
towards the Overwatch League for my part since departing there too. I have my issues with them, but I love the game and I love the people that are still there, and I still do
Of
watch from time
course.
to time. Anyway,
But there
was
is a cautionary tale
go ahead.
there as well. Yeah, there is
For
a
sure. I
cautionary
mean,
tale.
that's
Like,
yeah, and I think that's related to different things than what we're talking about with Valorant right now, which with Valorant, we're talking about the whole structure of the scene itself for the esport, basically. And
Mhm.
going back to my point about the state of StarCraft 2 for that short time in Korea, the great thing was that all of that was none of that, or I should say, none of that was produced by Blizzard. That was all produced by television channels and broadcast companies. And I think at the end of the day, as good as a developer can be at producing a broadcast, and Riot is certainly good, a broadcasting company will, in the end, if they're given enough opportunity and time, will always produce a better product because their focus is on broadcasting itself over developing games, right? A game company make games, develop a broadcaster, makes broadcasts. It's a fairly simple concept. So that's why that partnership
Yeah.
is so important. Where at the end of the day, maybe it's not worth it for these game developers to be spending all this money on something that they're maybe not going to be as committed to as a company would be that's sole purpose is to produce a good broadcast. And obviously these broadcasting companies need to make money as well. They need to be sustainable too. But in terms of what is going to produce the best product for the fans to enjoy, I think it's going to be a TV channel. It's going to be the broadcast company. It's going to be the people that's sole purpose is making an entertaining product over the entity that's sole purpose is making a good game. You need both. They're both vital, but they're both just better in certain areas, if that makes sense.
of course, it makes sense. I suppose the struggle that I imagine that we will always kind of undergo is the control aspect, because
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Riot gets to control every aspect of like say the LCS and how things are portrayed there, and unfortunately that could also lead to some, I'm not going to call it an integrity thing, but more so like do I as an LCS caster or a host or whatever look at the ability to maybe not criticize but touch on subjects
Can
that
you be
might not be
objective?
as keeping it objective without potential fear there, which obviously I think transcend,
Right.
and this is more of a inside baseball talk between casters, but for the greater community, would it be the healthiest possible ecosystem where everything's on the table to be talked about? Like, would I be able to jump on to a broadcast and talk about match fixing or something like that that might be ongoing?
Right.
Things that do that,
Yeah.
obviously we do have vessels like this one to use that might be more appropriate for those types of discussions. But there is something to be said about having also the competition aspect, as Kasra did mention that they saw some things in the Blast tournament that they now want to best, and you don't really get that when you have one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the gear shift, and you're just driving the whole car yourself. So, what do you think, old
Hold
boy?
on though. But someone said in chat, and I actually agree with this, is that not gonna lie, at this point, this is from Ajax Helios, by the way. Riot might as well be a broadcasting company for their
Yeah,
games. They've been in it for a long time. And I
it's
will
not a
say
lack of
like that,
expertise.
I've seen a lot of folks come through my internet's kind of crapping out again, fun. I've
Okay,
seen a lot of folks come through the I guess the machine of Riot and go into other broadcasting roles as well. So clearly, like
Sure.
they are doing that. But to Doa's point though, and someone in chat also said something really smart. Chat's been on fire today.
This is
Is that
good job, chat.
yeah, Valorant lives or dies, and this was the king says Valorant lives or dies on the success of the esports scene, though, and in a sense, Riot taking control of the broadcasting side lets them assure that it's up to the quality it needs to be.
Yeah.
Now, I will agree that Valorant does live or die based on its esports side because it is a very hyper focused competitive game. Now, as far as the broadcast quality, I don't doubt that Riot could put on a killer show. That said, we asked Kasra his favorite events, and he specifically mentioned Blast. And they were doing things at that event that were very different from an observing perspective, right? From the way that they highlighted sponsors and all the different ways that they took advantage of like what the tools that they had at the time and maximized it and made it great. Anyone can go like I don't want to say anyone, but it is easier now than it was back then to put on a show, right? To make an event. Like I've done and I've seen broadcasts where it's a shoestring budget with like two people flipping switches, maybe even one person doing everything, two casters, and that's honestly been like the COVID era of commentary, and even then that was like the early 2000s of esports as well. It's not like the most difficult thing in the world to do, but what is difficult is to be creative, is to make a good show,
Yes.
right? Anyone
Right.
can put on a show. Can you make a good show? So
Right.
there is that is the thing that I think like Riot,
And take
while
the
they might
risks
be able
at
to
the same time.
yeah, while Riot might be able to do that,
Yeah.
like will they be able to innovate? Because are they thinking about innovating in that regard? Like are they thinking
Absolutely.
about the little nuanced details that will make their shows better? I don't know. I can't answer that question, but Kasra seems pretty confident with First Strike, so we'll probably find out then.
I think one last little note too is I think it needs to go both ways. We're talking a lot about why broadcasters are important, but it's really important to respect the wishes of the game developer as well, as far as how they want their game to be portrayed. And that's why while it's I tend to think broadcasters will do a better job of making an entertaining product, and that's not to say it's a misnomer to say that because I think broadcasters that only do broadcasts and don't make games will do a better job than the game developer. That's not saying that a game developer will always do a bad job. They obviously
Right.
Riot has done a very good
Yeah.
job with a lot of their stuff. So you can't get that from me saying broadcasters will do a better job. But and so when I talk about it going both ways, what I'm saying is that these broadcasters will also need to have a very close personal relationship with the developer and make sure that the way that they are showing the characters on the screen in terms of graphics, all that kind of stuff, making sure the IP is displayed in a way that the developer is happy with too. So it needs to be a partnership that goes in both ways in equal directions too. And I think that's what we're trying to get to. And it's tough to get there, because there's
It's
a lot
hard.
of
It's hard in the
there's a lot of
esports scene.
passion in the industry, which
Yeah,
leads to a
well,
lot of
because you-
conflict
Yeah.
sometimes, which it's tough, but it's a good thing.
you come in on both sides because I mean obviously we touched on a lot of your experiences and our collective experiences where I've seen one broadcaster take a product and not do well with it, and then on the other side we've seen game publishers take a product and not do well with it. So it really is a matter of I think we have to look at Valorant in a vacuum in some cases, but also hopefully that they've also done the and it seems that they have, because speaking with Kasra and the other esports folks, that Riot does look outwardly a lot, and I'm in a position right now where I trust them until for some reason we have
Until you
news
don't.
otherwise. I until
Sure.
you don't. So
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean everything
That's how we
so
all
far
started.
has seemed very good, and exactly until you become jaded and angry later on. But I mean, looking like the LEC, that is in some cases some of the highest bar that I've seen when it comes to talent, chemistry, and broadcast quality and exciting gameplay. You get all those things, and that's the goal that I hope that the gold standard that I think every broadcaster as well as anyone in esports would like to achieve is either parity or to rise above that. And with a new product like this and the experience that Riot has, we'll just have to hope and assume that it's going to go well and that we all get to participate and enjoy it as a product. But there's also the other side of things, where when you release and allow other people to hold on to things and do things and handle things, sometimes it doesn't go well, which brings us on to the onto the one of the topics I wanted to talk about, and we did push it, but I do want to touch on it, and that is this Trovo / GLL tournament that happened a couple of months ago, in which a bunch of people have not been paid, which is
Oh boy.
the
Yes.
old not paying your people trick.
Ah.
I know this one. So
Haven't ever
this
seen
is,
this in esports before, except for
yeah,
literally every
it's like
month.
the old drunken non-paying uncle that stumbles out every once in a while. I'm like, oh Jesus, here we go
Yeah.
again. So
Shocking.
this is in response to this tournament. Basically, to put it all into a tiny little summary. A team won this tournament, the Trovo Challenge. They were supposed to win 10 grand, and now they have not been paid, or they have not been paid their portion of the prize pool, whatever you want to call it. They are now arguing amongst themselves, at least between GLL and Trovo, who is going to be paying these players. And it's been, many, many days, and it sucks. And I'll say
This is so tilted,
I know. Yeah, I'll read it for you. Hey, and congratulations on your performance in Trovo Challenge Valorant, hosted on the GLL platform. Please find below an update regarding the prize money payment. Apologize for the delayed response. This is on August 27th, by the way. In collaboration with Trovo, discussions are currently taking place to decide which party will make the payout. This is an ongoing conversation that has unfortunately been delayed, although we want to assure you that it is currently being solved. We will come with an update regarding the prize money payment at least next week.
How can it be delayed and also being solved at the same time? Those two things do not.
It's an gaseous state. It is in transition between both being solved and unsolved at the same time.
Schrodinger's problem solving.
Exactly. I know exactly what happened here.
And in this case, yeah, go on. Tell me.
Okay, when I used to work at Twitch, I worked on esports on that side for a little while, and when we entered into esports deals and stuff, like there was always like a clear understanding. Like I think like one of the most notable ones was the Halo Championship Series, I want to say, where I believe we provided funding for the prize pool. Essentially, what I'm getting at is that there was a clear understanding and, most importantly, a signed agreement. And what makes this very alarming to me is it sounds like GLL and Trovo were entering into some kind of handshake deal, which is stupid. Also, Trovo is Tencent's North American streaming platform that is kind of floundering right now. It gained the most traction when Mixer shut down. And then after that, because, like people they don't want to go to Twitch for whatever reason or go to Facebook. So they went to Trovo instead. But since then, it's tanked, right? It hasn't been nearly like their most viewed game right now is Minecraft at 1.6K viewers, if that tells you anything. So, yeah. So basically, I think that what ended up occurring is that GLL, for some reason, entered into a handshake agreement with Trovo. Then neither of them actually talked about who's going to pay. While I will say GLL is certainly responsible to at least provide some kind of answers, Trovo should not go unaccounted for in this. Like it also is their fault. Like they're the platform. It was called the Trovo Challenge. Like it's their event. They're the ones that like slap their branding on top of it in an attempt to grow their tiny platform. So pay Trovo. We're Tencent, for God's sake. Just pay them. What was you got to pay? Like $1,800? Stupid. Just pay the boy.
I did an event that was put on by a Chinese company earlier this year, and having worked with Chinese companies in the past in various years, it usually takes forever to get paid, no matter what the company is. I don't know why. Right. There's just a lot of extra banking stuff that goes on. So I'm sure that's part of it too. I didn't get paid for this event for 3 months because someone had to go in person to some bank in Wuhan, which was like the epicenter of the COVID pandemic, of course. That's what they told me in an email. They're like, somebody needs to go to this bank in Wuhan and they can't right now. And so we can't pay you. And I was like, okay. Sure, there's no way for me to fact check this, so I'll just trust you, I guess.
Exactly.
But the guy, he's like looking right now, what excuse do I have? Oh, this disease that's killing, the virus is killing millions of people. Oh,
So
God.
so there's always some, especially when you involve unfortunately companies that are based in China and esports. In my experience, there's always been massive delays. So I'm sure that's part of it. But at the end of the day, it's like Golden Boy said, you have to have this stuff better lined down before the event happens. Our own Sir Scoots had that to say. But and he's, man, if anyone's seen a lot of this kind of thing, I'm sure he's seen
No shit.
countless
Yeah.
instances of this over
Yeah.
his career, you know?
Here's my problem with this is that GLL and I know the people at GLL. This is the one time where I won't start listing off all my names for credibility because it won't do them any favors in this context. But I know the name on that email. That's a person I've met multiple times doing PUBG, and unfortunately, there's been instances in the past where it's taken a long ass time for GLL to pay out for certain things. And now, obviously, in esports, there's always logistics. You have to wait for sponsorship money to come in. Sometimes, you have to, get paid before you can pay. But all these things, but it's about communication and flow of communication and respect for the people that you're talking with. And to kind of come out and say like, "Oh, sorry for the delay," which has been multiple months. But it's almost being solved, but it's not quite solved yet. We're still discussing it, but you'll know soon. And soon is an arbitrary statement that could be tomorrow or another month from now. I really don't know if this thing has been solved because that email is dated a month ago. So one would assume that something would have happened since then. But there's also like the talent to be considered. I know that a lot of people in these situations end up getting screwed, and you often can't say anything because you're going to be afraid of the ramifications that come afterwards. You will not get the good opportunity to not get paid slowly in the future as well, which is never never a position that anyone in esports want to put themselves in. However, these are players that are playing in these challenges for money to support a lifestyle that is probably precarious as it is. So if you take an extra 3 months to pay somebody out, that's rent, groceries, gas, whatever you want to call it. And most of these players' cases, full size anime body pillows. It's really
But wait, but think about it like this though, right? This actually plays literally right into the thing we were talking about before the interview.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
With the players. Like this leads right into that. This is why we have situations like not this exact situation, but it's situations like this that create the desperation for a lot of these players, because it's the players that are being affected, right? Like I know if I were to have done Trovo Challenge or whatever, right? I know that like my agency would have gotten a deal signed, and then at that point they would have just been like, "Yo, you got to pay, or else we're gonna have some problems." Right? There would have been a solution, but
Kurt's
a lot
gonna
of these
break your
players
knees.
don't. Yeah, like Kurt will come by and he'll bust a cap in that ass. But
wow,
if you
I
ever
haven't
met
heard
Kurt,
that
you'll
phrase
know.
since the 90s.
Yeah, well, what can I say, dude?
It was
I
one of
like
my
to
favorite phrases.
keep.
I mean,
I'm very streets ahead. Wait, is one of your favorite
Streets
phrases,
is
or are
real,
you just
yeah.
walking around telling everyone I'm gonna bust a cap in your ass? Is that what you were doing?
yeah, there was a period in my life where that was pretty common occurrence.
I can.
Okay,
That was
fair
during
enough.
my gangster phase.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool.
You know.
That's where. Okay. The streets were definitely real where you were.
Of course, the mean streets of Wisconsin. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, if there's one intimidating factor about you is that your willingness to repeat gangster phrases and your enormous case of Gundams or whatever that is behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better be ready when the 5 roll by. Yeah.
But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that
on the block.
it's very concerning that this keeps happening, and this is one of the reasons why these players do these things, and it's the players that are being affected. They don't have that infrastructure to be able to go after these TOs. Like, why? I don't know if this was KP in an organization right now, or is he in? I think he was in Oxygen Supremacy, right? So Oxygen Supremacy is like a small organization. Why is KP tweeting that? Why isn't it like the Oxygen Supremacy Twitter account?
Ultimately, that's all you have sometimes is your ability to be like, hey, we're getting fucked over here. Someone to come help us.
Oh no, I'm
like,
not saying that they did it wrong. I'm just saying it's like they just don't have the
I agree,
support.
but they don't have the recourse.
Too bad,
so that's
one of the things that has struck me is I used to work with someone who was an MMA fighter for a few years, for a lot of years actually, and what he kept saying as he got into esports was, wow, this really reminds me of what it was like 10 years, 15 years ago in, you know, UFC and MMA, where it was just, it's the Wild West, right? Where it's like you've got good promotions, you've got bad promotions, you've got, you know, people who are going to pay on time and treat you well. You're going to have people that do the opposite, right? And he said it took us 15 to 20 years before things kind of stabilized and got reliable and all that. And if you think about the timeline of esports popularity in North America specifically, we'll use that as an example. It's, you know, really, it hasn't even been, you know, 10 years, honestly, since esports has been like a word most people would understand if you asked them what it meant on the street, right? So we're still in like some of the earlier years of this industry, which is why it's so vital that we do everything we can to kind of build it the right way and call organizations like this out so we can try to, you know, get through this phase as fast as possible, you know, and it sucks to see things like this, and it's going to keep happening. But the more we talk about it, the more we say this is not okay, call these people out there doing this. Hopefully we can get through it a little bit quicker, you know?
Absolutely.
You just gotta get to those banks in Wuhan. That's it.
Yeah,
that's
right. Oh yeah, there's like
right
you have
away.
to have the guy in the poncho has to meet the dude with the with the bag of like cash, and then like jump back on his moped and drive to another bank.
I do have a quick anecdote that I did want to share. I'm not going to say any names, but this was genuinely one of the funniest situations that ever happened to me. So I did an event in Latin America, and I did an event in Mexico. Just narrow that down at least. And we were waiting on payment for like almost a year. And I swear to God, I think the guy flat out said something along the lines of like, the person who is supposed to pay this is currently being investigated for financial fraud in Mexico City or something like that. Yeah. And then, but I ended up getting paid. But I just find it to be it's just hilarious because it's like you hear about these things and there's so many like little layers to esports, and I specifically just took the event so I could bring my wife to Mexico. That was like the only reason why I did it. But my God,
a little vacation in there sometime. Yeah, it's good.
It's a roller coaster, dude.
It's
great.
I mean,
I've had situations where it's gotten to the point where I've been emailing a certain individual every day for a full months after they were supposed to pay me due, just to get them to finally do it. You know, and that's the stuff you don't hear about very much behind the scenes.
Yeah,
you get to see all the flashy stage.
I'm sure we've all got stories of that nature, but there is one thing I want to touch on just before, since we are running a little bit over time, and by a little bit I mean a shitload. This best in the West tournament. By the way, one last cap: pay your fucking people.
Please
pay your fucking people. That's it. Please
pay your fucking people, everybody. Best in the West. A tournament not a tournament, a show match being organized between Team Liquid's Valorant. Can we mention this is not on the main Liquid channel, by the way, or Liquid Twitter, versus G2 in a Valorant showdown. No more talk. We'll see you this weekend, G2 Esports. May the best in the West win. That's a lot of talk coming from Team Liquid in a very short amount of words. Basically, like, okay, we'll see you on the playground, bro. Bike racks, 3 p.m. Sunday. We'll see you there. Just to give you some context, I know because not everyone can keep up with G2 and Liquid and the other two teams that are signed in European Valorant. That right now G2 has lost, I believe, 3 total maps in their entire Ignition Series run. 2 of them were at the hands of FPX in the most recent tournament, I believe. And before that, I think the last time they dropped a map was when David P's dad died. So that is not a lot of room there for any level of trash talk towards G2 from Liquid or really anybody else. And my concern is that we're going to watch G2 absolutely own Liquid. Counterpoint, Golden Boy, we'll start with you.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what, guys? We set this up so that it wasn't just going to be bashing on Liquid. So
right.
Sure. I'm gonna counterpoint. All right. Here's the counterpoint. Okay. G2 ain't ready to not play the game. You want to know how you don't play the game? By blinding your opponent nonstop.
Oh, okay.
Just 50 flashes. All right. That's what they're gonna do. They're just gonna swarm the site with every single flash. You're gonna have 3 breach flashes. They're gonna have leers. who knows? They may even run fucking Phoenix. I don't know. They're gonna do whatever they want, and they're gonna do their best to just blind their opponent as much as possible. But their goal here is to essentially dissolve their retinas, so that this way they will not be able to play Valorant at a high level.
Permanently
Now, don't get me
blinded.
wrong. Yeah, Mixwell and they'll probably still win, but even then, they'll be blind, and that's the most important thing. That I'm just okay. I'm
You're
trying
gonna have
here,
those like
but they're really
those
yeah.
little,
I
those
just
little,
don't
glasses for
understand.
sun tanning.
I don't understand how you say like the time for talk is over. Like the time for talk been over.
We've never spoken, but the
Like,
time is over.
G2
Uh,
G2 literally
no
has
more talk.
dominated every event. Like no more talk. We'll see you this weekend. No more talk. Okay, so looking at some of the results here, I'm trying to get a read on this. Liquid and G2 have met a handful of times. They met
Right. In various
for the
states.
Allied Esports Odyssey. So I think maybe the argument is that the SA have dominated regions, but they haven't played nearly as much against each other. They played once at Allied Esports and went 1-1. But that event was also just unfortunately a very weird one for G2. And then they lost in a best of one upper final, if I'm reading this correctly. Oh no, they won in a best of one upper final against Liquid for Allied Esports Odyssey. That was the last time that they played against each other. Since then, they have
Right.
not encountered one another. So I think that there could be a case made that, like, because these two teams haven't clashed nearly as much, we are probably going to be in. We're going to be in for a good match no matter what. But you'll be a fool to think that G2 doesn't win.
It'll be fun.
Noah?
Yeah. I mean, Team Liquid has a really great, adorable horse mascot. So they've got that going for them. That's exciting.
G2 have the ninja
I-
things, no?
Is G2 aware
They-
that this is happening? Because I only
True.
saw one tweet. Did G2 tweet about this at all? Are they aware that?
Well,
they're
they said
being-
they didn't
that
want
they're-
any more talk.
Oh, true.
Yeah, the
social
time for
promotion.
talk was over. Did you not?
Yeah,
Hold
the
on,
time-
not
I'm going to G2.
catch that?
Yeah, there's no more time for talk. So no one's going to talk about it.
I'm actually going on to see if did they actually.
I'm
tweet
looking
about it?
right now. I actually don't see. Okay,
The time for
hold
talk
on. No,
really
no, no.
was
They
over.
did tweet about it. They did tweet about it 2 hours ago.
Where?
They said it's not enough to beat Liquid Valorant only once. Take a look at some of the spicy challenges. So, what is cool though is that they're making it into an event. So
Oh
they're gonna
yeah,
have
yeah, okay.
yeah. So it's
Well, why
something.
would why would G2 need to be taking it seriously anyway? Like, yeah, we'll throw some aim lab in there. We'll have some fans. We got the secret lab hot seat. This is all like the supporting the supporting stuff. But aside from that, they're mostly just tweeting about League.
Secret Lab is a sponsor of both teams, so that actually makes sense now. So it seems like this is mostly just going to be. I think this is just like a Secret Lab type of thing, just to get some just.
All
The
right.
marketing team sending each other emails like,
It's
we both
all
have
becoming
deliverables this
clear
month.
now.
What are we gonna do?
Now I could see these two
Time to
teams
talk is
closely
over.
matched because they're both going to have great gaming chairs. And
Right.
we all know that a good gaming chair equals success in Valorant.
Brought to you by Secret Lab,
Right.
Golden Boys, plug of the day.
Right?
Do you have a Secret Lab chair? I can't tell. Looks like you're
No,
showing
I
a nice
don't.
Aeron back there.
I bought mine. I bought mine from BTOD.com. So
Oh,
not
nice.
a gamer.
Shout out to
a gamer
that
chair.
site.
Shout out to
Before we
that
give any more
site.
free promo, before we give any more free promo to Secret Lab or anyone else, final thoughts, Golden Boy, on anything we talked about today.
Dude, loaded show, man. I got a bowl of poke here ready to just be devoured into. I'm kind of tight that
were you
Japan
drinking,
isn't a
by the
major
way?
region. Oh, boba. I was having boba.
Okay.
My wife came home and brought me boba. She's such a sweetheart. So yeah, I'm a little tight that Japan isn't a major region because that's probably the region that I've enjoyed watching the most out of all the regions that were in Europe and North America. Like I've really liked watching all their matches. But I think that it is a special time for Valorant. I'm glad to see that we're going to get a little bit more out of the scene in 2020. I knew that we were poised for a December event. I just didn't quite know what the event was going to be. So this was a pleasant surprise. And yeah, the future is bright for the game. It's a good time to get involved. If you are one of those people that you're like, I want to get into Counter-Strike, but there's so much legacy there. There's so much history, and you feel a little bit overwhelmed, which you shouldn't because Counter-Strike's great, and you should watch that as well. But Valorant is a great place to start. It's there's nothing more exciting than a new esport. It really, like, especially one with so much potential, like the way that Valorant has right now. I think this is how a lot of folks felt about Fortnite when it was starting to really blow up. But this is different. This isn't about streamers. This isn't about, like quirky little challenges and playful colors. Like, you could tell that there's just like a real desire to tell some kick-ass stories and to really make this game into one of the biggest esports in the world. And I think that they're taking good steps to get there. I just hope that they don't make a wrong turn. That's my concern.
Eric?
Yeah. Yeah, it was an awesome show. Thanks for having me on. I'm definitely not a Valorant expert, but it was really fun having a conversation about the industry in general. And I do really like Valorant. I think it's a great game. I really enjoy playing it. I enjoy watching it. I had a ton of fun hosting it for Pop Flash, and so I want to see it do well. I want to see it grow because I think it deserves to grow. And I agree with Golden Boy that I think thus far the scene has grown in a very healthy way. I think the Ignition series was a great example of what I've been talking about this whole time, which is that partnership between broadcaster and developer. That's the kind of thing that I'd love to see more of going forward. So while of course we're going to have in-house events at Riot, why wouldn't we? They do a good job too. I just hope we are able to find that balance. Where the scene can be big, there can be a lot of opportunity for things fans can watch, for players to come up, for people in the industry to come up. And, I just want to see the game grow in a healthy way that also helps the esports industry overall. So, yeah, I had a ton of fun talking about that. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, for everyone out there, thank you for stopping by Valoranting. We will be live again next week, where we actually have some more topics to cover that we didn't cover this week. So don't be afraid to, of course, follow us on the Twitch channel here and on Twitter and YouTube and anywhere a podcast can be found. If you don't want to watch our faces next time around, you just want to listen, you can do that as well. So we'll be live again next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific. Thank you so much again. Shout out to Riot for coming on, and specifically Kasra for answering all our questions, or at least most of them. And we'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. Have a great week, everybody.